Encore? Honey. Hi guys, how are you? I meant to do a little live show on Saturday, which was my birthday. I didn't get around to it because I was just having a nice time for my birthday. And so I wanted to hold it off until now. I wanted to talk to you guys and do a little fundraiser, as well as just share my stories about Prue. If anyone has any questions, I'd love for you to write them below, and I'll answer them as I see them. So a lot of people ask me, what brought me to Prue? That's often the first question. And the answer to that is this innate calling. Ever since I was a little girl, I knew that I wanted to help kids that were dealt with family abuse, that were abandoned, that were almost forgotten. I just wanted to give those children an optimistic future. I remember one of my guides, and just a really big inspiration in my life, Everin Gundes. He was my science teacher. He asked me one day in middle school, and he was just like, what is it that you want to do with your life? What is your purpose? And I was like, I want to have an orphanage that heals children, not just give them away. And so ever since then, I've been taking steps by steps to get there. I did a dance movement therapy major in college that was directly for orphanage populations. Took a lot of psychology classes in child development, in third world country problems, as like philosophy classes and stuff. Studied a lot of philosophy of Occidental, and did a comparison between Occidental and Western philosophies, and how is philosophy used for the betterment of people, the morals, and how do those lessons of philosophy really create a mental awareness. A lot of psychology as well as to establish mental awareness, but more so than that, dance movement therapy or psychosomatic therapies are taking psychology, taking philosophy, taking those morals and lessons that we need to learn and bringing them into the body. Really teaching you how to express what you feel through your body and how can you live by your morals through your body. So after I finished that, I took a tour, what was it? I did it with Steven. We just went on a tour, on a little road trip around the United States, thanks to Jason Beck. And I got to meet my biological mom there. I got to go to a lot of nature parks and sustainable communities. And it just really awoke in me that what I want to do of having a holistic healing orphanage or having a safe house for children and women is really a manner or an expression of sustaining life. And so after all that trip, I got this huge fire within me to just go to Peru, where I've had this innate calling my whole life to go to. So I set off, and first I started in Panama, where I was living in a whole bunch of different situations that led me to some indigenous families. And it was really beautiful on Bastimentos because there's just one part of this island that has some tourism to it, but otherwise it's just one sidewalk and it leads down to this indigenous family that has 6 houses to themselves. And I met the grandmother and the great-grandmother and all of their children and their great-grandchildren, and it was just so beautiful to see a indigenous community that was completely centered around family, that was family, and seeing the different branches of family and how those morals and values get translated because of the unity of family that is surrounding them. It was just really beautiful. I got to... Hello! Thanks for being the first one on. I got to learn plant medicine with one of the guys. I was living with him, and there was just 2 other tourists that we were all living together, and we were just it was just really sweet. If I remember his name, I've seen so many people lately. If I remember his name, it was Christoph or something like that, and he was a boatman, and so we would just go trekking around the island, and he would teach me the different plant medicine, and we would go on his boat all the time. And I really remember this one story where I was in the boat and we had just gotten a bunch of oranges, and so I started peeling an orange with my hand. And he was like, "Wow, you really are a jungle cat. We don't do that around here. That's so old school. I haven't seen that since I was a little boy, and my great-grandmother was doing that. I usually use a knife." And he got so amazed that I was peeling an orange by my hands. He was like, "All right, continue to do it." And he was passing out these oranges to all the people on the boat. It was just really funny. But just seeing and learning so firsthand, and just it was just so beautiful. Panama was really like a double-edged sword. It was so beautiful by landscapes. There was this two places really. La Loma Lounge or La Loma Lodge on Bastimentos was spectacular. I learned about how to make cacao, how to treat the trees, how to keep them all happy and healthy and everything like that. It was really cool. How to turn raw cacao beans into chocolate. And it was really cool later down the road when I got to Peru and I was living with the indigenous communities to see the indigenous languages change, or how the plants were the same or different in different indigenous languages. In Panama, in Bastimentos, that indigenous family and the indigenous families around them were speaking Guari Guari, which was a mixture of English, Spanish, and French all together. But it was like, it sounded almost Jamaican, you know, and people like generalize the Jamaican accent for so many of the Caribbean and stuff like that, but its origins are a mixture of 3 diverse languages. So it has this very rhythmic vibe to it, and it was just, I've lost my words. It just shows the richness of indigenous populations in my mind. But the double-edged sword of Panama, right, was how much I learned about problems of sex trafficking, expats going down to Panama for pedophilia, and being very open about it and being very proud of their pedophilia. It was very difficult for me to learn about that side of Panama. Hi, Brentwood. Nice to see you. Thanks, guys, for coming on. A little fist bump. So, yeah, the expats of Panama were just really difficult to deal with. What? Oh, you've just eaten all my... He loves chapstick. Do anyone else's kids, like, just stick their fingers and use chapstick like lotion? Ay. So that was really difficult, and there was like some expats that had a horse farm, and I learned that was like how they would lure kids in. They would do like horse lessons, but then both the mother and both the man and the woman, I should say, the couple, would like have pedophilia for children, and it was just like really gross because they had a child and they didn't see a difference between their child and like other children, you know. They weren't like, wow, I have a child that's the same age of the children that I do pedophilia acts to, like, this is not okay. So just because they were a different color or a different race, like, it set their child apart from the children that they were causing pain to, and it was just really heart-wrenching. So after I learned too much about the heaviness of sex trafficking in Panama and how the Panama Canal is the biggest hub and trade for sex trafficking, it was just like, okay, I gotta get out of here. I've just like, I just like swamped myself in learning too much right off the bat. I was working with this nonprofit that was not a real nonprofit. It was asking $750 a week to volunteer with them, and I am back in the States now. I'm living back in Massachusetts with my dad and my stepmom and my son and my doggy. If you remember my spotted dog Brentwood, we're back in the States. So hi. So it was really this nonprofit was just ridiculous because they'd be like, okay, yeah, you're gonna go teach English to these indigenous communities, and for paying $750 a week, this indigenous community still had like holes in their roofs, or just had like wood planks that were so ridden with termites and stuff that it just like wasn't healthy, and it just looked like they weren't being helped. You know, it's fine to have a nonprofit that teaches English, but language should be a secondary thing to helping the basic necessities of a community. And that experience is what shaped what I want to do as a nonprofit. Yes, I want to have this multi-generational school to impact and prevent child abandonment, giving families a better sense of finance and economy and all that stuff. But all of that would come secondary to making sure that the population that I'm working with is taken care of, that their basic needs are met. You can't, like, Maslow's law, which is one of the psychologists that I studied, you know, says that you have to start at your basic needs being met. Volunteerism is a real thing, sadly. Yeah, it is. And I worked in Peru where there was some places that their volunteer systems did benefit the local community, and that was great. So those gave me some positive experiences. But this first one that I went to in Panama was just horrible. It just taught me all the wrong things that a nonprofit was doing. And so they tried being like, you have to pay so much more money, and I was like, sorry, I'm not going to pay anything more until I know what happened to my money. And then they started telling me that the owner of the nonprofit was out in Germany, and he was looking for funds, and he was looking for this, that, and the other thing, and like, I was like, but I just paid $750, and I just stayed here for a month, and all I got to do was go surfing if I wanted to, or go spearfishing, and then teach like English 1 hour a day. That is not helping the indigenous community, nor did they teach you about the indigenous community, nor did they explain any of these things to you. So it was just heart-wrenching, and I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here, like full-blown sadness, and I have to go to Peru, which is where I had been called to for so long. So I just want to say hello to some new people who are on. Hi, Brian, and Adriana, yo creo que hablas español, entonces, hola. Siempre hay muchas personas que hablan diferentes idiomas. Si tienes preguntas, estoy hablando de mi viaje a Sudamérica y por qué lo hice eso. Entonces, si necesitas o tienes preguntas de qué es mi sueño y cosas así, escríbela y voy a estar comunicándome acá. Thank you, Brentwood. I hope to see you soon. And yeah, so carrying on. That was Panama. My dad's like favorite and horror stories of Panama was just like my first week getting there, because right as I got off the plane, the debit machine ate my debit card, and it was like after hours, so I spent the first night in Panama just sleeping in like an ATM machine thing, you know, like those glass ones that have the doors and everything. Yeah, well, after hours my card got eaten, and I didn't know where I was, so I just like locked the door and slept there. So he's always horrified but like mystified at my strength for you know, being creative and finding ways to be safe. Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's just like, oh my god, my daughter, she's crazy. But I just see it as that way. So anyway, let's move on to Panama, which I don't have many questions yet, but hopefully people will just be writing as I go. Thank you, Brentwood, for writing so much. So Peru. When I got to Peru... Hi! Hi! Hey! You want to come over here and tell the Peruvian side of things, because, you know, you were made there. Ow! Hey, come say hello. Hello. Say hello. So my Peruvian story incorporates this one, who's growing so big. So I started off in Peru at Eco Truly, which was a Hare Krishna or Vaishnava temple just north of Lima. The journey to get there when you don't know Spanish and when you don't know where the heck you're going and the directions are not very clear on how to get there is ridiculous. After you know how to get there, it's quite easy, but I mean, just, oh my god, that was just a story. But anyway, once I got there, it was like 5 o'clock. No, it was like, it was still dark, and they have Mangalartik at 5, so it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And Eco Truly just has like a dog pack there. And so, like, I'm coming and I'm knocking on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then this dog pack is just like barking and barking. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna wake everyone up. This is horrible. But I ended up staying there for a couple of months. I think like 3 months my first time around. And it was just really beautiful because it was kind of like going back to college, I was learning a lot about Hindu traditions and culture and philosophy. They have this one kind of psychology called, well, in Spanish it's Odia Terapia. So it's like OIDA, which is actually an acronym, but I mean, it's this really cool psychology, or they call it a therapy though, where it takes a look at different philosophies and different beliefs. So it's like, okay, you're Christian and I'm, Hindu or I'm Jewish, and it takes you through a therapeutic process through your religion. It takes a look at what are the morals of your religion, what are the beliefs, how are you living in line with these religious contexts, which interestingly enough, they're like also saying that religion and philosophy, that is really like a hard line to see where it crosses, They say that religion is like it's so hard to translate sometimes when you learn about something so much in a different language. They say that religion is like the trying to act in alignment to the philosophical properties, but being unsure of exactly what the sacred texts are trying to teach you. So it's just like trying without being guided kind of thing. And so it was just really interesting learning about Odia Terapia, and there was this really cool guy there. He had one eye, and he was just like this healer. He was about Chinese healing, and he taught me a lot about the yin and yang of plants and the, feminine aspects of a plant or the masculine aspect of a plant, or, all of that. if they're hot or warm, or how do they affect the body and how do they affect the organs, and it was just really beautiful to learn about herbalism in a more structured way, because this was where I took like my childhood passion for plants and like concoctions and started to learn about them in a more formulated way. When I was in college, I was always the girl that people would, get to my room and be like, hey, I'm really stressed and I have anxiety and I need some kind of tea. Can you make it for me? You know, so I'd always been around herbs, but this was the first time where I was really learning it hands-on and just in a more formulated way. So after that, I had some friends. There was this really beautiful, like, just Hindu concert. And then after that, some friends and I were just like, let's go to the jungle. So we went to the jungle, and I fell in love with the landscape, but I was not aligned with the people I was traveling with. So I just kind of started journeying off on my own and starting to see the indigenous cultures again. And that's where I just find myself in love and not able to leave. In so many ways. Like, learning about medicine music, learning about, you know, the language and how the language is really like connecting to the sounds of nature. In Sauriaki, there was this one lady, Adela, who would take me out into the jungle all the time with her, and she would teach me about plant medicine, and she would start teaching me the language. So she would like stop me in the middle of the jungle and be like, listen, what languages do you hear? What calls do you hear? And she would be like, do you hear the bird? How does he speak? And she would be like, pomoro, pomoro, you know, and she would just be like, you have to listen to the sounds of nature because then you'll know their language. And it just like really hit me. Hi, Michaela. After that, I was just kind of like, hold on. Achoo! 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 Oy, sorry. After that, it just became about me and my dog, like walking through the jungle so much and just listening to the languages of nature, and listening to the different calls of the monkeys, of just all the animals. And then I learned from another person, my baby daddy, my baby's daddy. He and I were walking through the jungle once, and he was like, so you've learned about how to listen to the languages of nature, but have you learned to smell the languages of nature? And he was like, each animal has a scent. So the reason why indigenous people are so good at like capturing animals or finding the right plant medicine and stuff is because not only does each thing have its language, each thing has its smell. So they walk really slowly. So they walk really, really profoundly because they can smell everything. Hi, Neil. They smell everything, they hear everything, so they know what's coming up. And I just found that so profound because it brings language into such a deeper way, because we in the United States say that language is just a human aspect, that no other creature has a way of speaking. But the way that South Americans, or the way that the indigenous say, is that language is much more profound than just words, that there is deeper levels to it, right? So walking through the jungle just became this huge meditation from these two teachers that I had. It was listening to the sounds. Oh, you got your hand stuck, you silly boy. Open it up. There it is. Oh, you got boogies. Come here. You got boogies. Oh, don't wipe it on the wall. Come here. I will wipe it off of your face with a tissue. Very good. I'll do it too. So walking through the jungle just became this super profound meditation for me. And I felt indestructible with this little doggy over here. Do you see her? She is like so awesome. She is such a jungle dog. We'd be walking and she'd be like running off the trail and scaring away, snakes and huge lizards, like almost as big as her. And she would like tell me where the monkeys were up above and like tell me where the birds were. And so she just kept me looking around, because I oftentimes in the States just walk looking down, trying to see where I'm going. So in Peru, it just became like this constant daily practice of knowing where I am and who I am, and how do all of us interact with one another. And so how could you not love Peru? How could you not love that experience? And I have some girlfriends that are out in Bali, and they go there back and back and back and back again. And I understand her why she does it. It's because we just find this place of meditation, this place of enlightenment, because you become full of light and understanding. And to find those places that are off the beaten path, and to have each day become something that brings awareness to you, there is a sense of love and blissfulness that makes you see the truth. So I stayed there a long time, 4 years, and I will tell you, I took one marketing class in college. I should have taken a lot more business classes, because the reason why everything failed was because I just had no idea what I was doing. Thankfully, I have some friends that helped keep me afloat. I gotta do a shout out right now to Forrest. Dan, I met him when I was at Echo Truly. Thank you so much. I should have asked you for tips on how to run a business and how to run a nonprofit and how to make things be true. So I have to say thank you to you, and I have to say thank you to Ross. He is an amazing person. He sees people's passions, he sees people's love and inspiration, and he helps them. And I am so fucking thankful to Ross, and my whole family, I'm sure, are inadvertently super thankful to Ross, because he just understood my love for the Amazon. He came down and visited me the first year I was in Peru for my birthday, and I just took him on with some random with some kids that were like activists in Pichinaki, and we just went off on the mountains for so long, and I think. And I remember him turning to me and being on the top of this mountain that was just deforested. There was 1 acre of trees. And I just remember him turning to me and being this is the first time I really can breathe. And I think it wasn't just for the fresh air. I think it was just just being and just seeing. Up there, it was just so easy to see how far and how big life is. And, he just told me, when he had saw me, that he saw the transformation in me. Thanks to Ross, I owe him my life. But, I went from being Cat like the animal in college to the jungle cat. And the jungle cat is just something so much more profound. And I really am so thankful for him for believing in me time and time again. He's also another person where I should have been what the fuck do I do? What am I doing here? How do I run a business? How do I run a nonprofit? That would have been a lot more useful than just some of the other questions I asked him. And I probably would have succeeded if I was smarter then and asked him those things. But, being in the jungle, sometimes it's hard to get good communication from people. That's also me making excuses. I totally should have just asked people how to do what I wanted to do. But as my dad always says, I'm a person that learns by experience and not really by being told. So I made some great things though, you know? I left things behind, physically and idealistically. I, renovated as well as constructed from the ground up 4 alternative schools. Alternative in the way that they were based more on leadership and providing a sense of being for the children. And it taught them everything from English to music theory to just rhythm building to gymnastics to yoga to nutrition. Oh my god, the list could go on and on and on. But it was just this thing where each week I decided that there was going to be a different theme, and so I taught them different stuff. And 1 week we did the theme of rain. So I taught them how to make rain sounds with their hands. Just okay, everyone do this, and now we're going to do it in a circle so that everyone goes at a different time, or snapping. How to make rain sounds with your body. Scientifically, how to capture rain and make sure that it's clean, that stuff doesn't grow into what you've caught. How to make rain instruments like rain sticks and stuff like that. So it just brought learning into what I felt a more kinesthetic way, because I'm such a kinesthetic person. And so I felt like doing those activities really captured every learner's way of learning. And, I left these ideas behind as well. I made a tree house where so many indigenous people and also colonials, people that were more up and going and more modern, they were like, no, you can never build a tree house, it's gonna die and this and that. But I built a tree house, and it just completely boggled a lot of people's minds. They're like, what? What? Trees can do that? And it was just really beautiful to leave a lot of things behind. It was really good for me also to learn bit by bit what to do and what not to do. So for my nonprofit going forward, things are going to be more organized. After all of that, I really fell in love with a place called Atalaya. That's where I spent most of my pregnancy. There's the family, Ada, which is the mother, Jose Luis, which is the father. They had 3 children at the time. Hi, Diego. They had 3 children at the time, and I was living with them. And it was just so peaceful to live with them. More or less, it was just so great living with them. But there was also things that opened up my eyes that was this is what I need to do, There was just stuff. So it was just really great living with them, because we lived in 2 different houses, because we were in 2 different villages, on the weekends, in one village, and the other weekend on the other village. So it was really cool living with them, because Ada taught me how to, conserve water for washing, because we would have to go get water from the river. So how to use water conservatively, how to wash clothes appropriately. I know that sounds really weird, but when you're cleaning by hand, there's a method to doing so. Also, she taught me how to cook over fires and not burn everything, how to cook over a fire when it's raining or when it's windy, and how to start a fire. But also being with her, I really learned how frequent it is for people to just throw to just burn plastic because it's a really good fire starter because it like burns for a while, so it will help catch on to wood. And so like trying to teach them how that changes the ozone layers was like something that I had to run into, you know, and how to explain from scratch what an ozone layer is, and then how to then explain plastic's impact on them. So it was just like it's just really profound. Ada, thanks to her, she was also the one that taught me like how to machete very well, how to find pockets of root water where it's just like a huge puddle that practically never dries because that's where the trees give so much canopy shade and where the roots hold the moisture in the ground. So it's really pure, it's crystal clear because of the purification from the roots, and like how to find those in the jungle so that you never like die of thirst or go thirsty. She taught me how to, hey Nick, she taught me how to, again, like be in touch with nature's spirits. She taught me a lot about indigenous beliefs, what we would call here superstitions, and just like how to protect yourself from different jungle spirits, you know? And she was the one that taught me how tobacco is very sacred as a protection, and so a lot of people will just carry tobacco with them to protect them. And then they also carry cacao often because it's an offering, so they also, like, if they feel a spirit is trying to call them into the jungle, instead of going, they would offer the spirit, like, protection and a blessing. And so being in Atalaya just became so mystical. It just brought the magic of the jungle into me, as well as the physicality of what it means to live in the jungle. Ada was the one who taught me how to be tough as nails. She would always carry her baby around all day long on her back. She would be macheting. She would be like, how do you say it in English? Planting seeds, like climbing up tall trees to like get food. She would be, in Spanish it's called juntar, which means to join, but like in this way, when they're talking about it agriculturally, it means like when they've cleared a chunk of land to plant. So they take all of like the broken down trees or like the twigs and everything, and they pile it all together because they're about to do like a huge burn of that chunk of area. So she taught me of like how to do all of that, and she taught me like basic instruction. It was just like really cool living with her. I really enjoyed learning the magic of the jungle with them. There was this little kid in the village in Agua Azul, Jacob, who would always take me out into the jungle, and we would collect the best things. We would go mushroom hunting, and he only knew 2 edible mushrooms because he was like, 9 at the time? He only knew 2 edible mushrooms, but literally like 5 minutes of walking, we would get armfuls, like huge bowl armfuls of these mushrooms that we would use for cooking, for eating, and you know, for really good protein sustenance. And then he and I would go out, and he would just be like, oh yeah, this tree is what we use for rope, this tree is what we use for this thing. Like, the indigenous way of life, children at such a young age know nature, know what you need to sustain yourself, to maintain yourself. It was so cool. He was an awesome kid. he would also, like, one day when I was pregnant, I was like, I'm craving bee pollen. And he was like, well, in our chunk of land, like, there's this old bee nest that, like, fell down and stuff. So he goes and he brings me the purest bee pollen ever. Here in the States, you know, like, we get bee pollen and it's dry and it's in those little balls. This was like bee pollen cream. It was so astringent, so bitter, but it was so delicious. What is that? Hey, come here, I can help you. But that's Lisa's. She's... What, you want to put it on? Okay. Sorry, Lisa. Yeah, that'll do. Here, bring your hand through this way. Okay. There you are. Okay. Ciao. It's so cute. He's so adorable. And yeah, so like, moms think of it this way, like, as you're pregnant, learning about all the magic of the jungle, really being in tune with the jungle, being fine to sit and be present. Imagine all of that energy that gets transformed into your son as he's in his prime stages of development. I just felt like it was just so cool of a place, you know? Rainy days, I would spend it teaching kids card games and, like, teaching them, like, numbers and math by using cards. Jose Luis, Ada's husband, he would often read my fortune with cacao leaves, but it seemed like he was kind of biased, or he was just, like, trying to push it in my face a lot. He was like, this is you and your baby. You see how you guys are together? Like, the dad is not, he's like way over here in his other path, you know? So he tried to tell me so many times the truth. But anyway, you know, it's really cool to come from the States where people will read your cards. And my papu, he would always tell me in Greece how you could read your, like, coffee and your tea leaves to then go into the indigenous communities and find that they read coca leaves. So cross-culturally, everyone needs the sense of reading the future. Come here, I can help you. Come here, Boopy. Okay, seems like we're on the verge of a breakdown, so I'll finish it with a song that I sang all the time in the jungle. It was Jose Luis's favorite song of mine. Well, it's not my personal song, it's from Pocahontas. But I will sing it for you guys and I will go to my son. So, here you go. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll know things you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon? Or frost the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountains? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come around the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come a-roll in all the riches all around you. And for once, never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heroine and the otter are my friends, but we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hope that never ends. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or frost the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? So, there's the song. That was always Jose Luis's favorite song, even though he didn't know what I was singing about, which I find very profound based off of the lyrics. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, or you're curious, or any of this information sparked interest, comment below, or just let me know. I've got 1,001 more stories that I could share. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for checking in. I know it was a long-winded spiel, but I hope the stories are something that you guys can take away. Have a good one.